Well, the New York Islanders and the Tampa Bay Lightning met in the playoffs last year. It was Tampa Bay who came out on top, the Islanders jumping out to a quick lead in this series. This is instant analysis presented by Tylenol Rapid Release Gel Caps, rapid release for rapid relief. Joined now by Arthur Staple of The Athletic. And Arthur, Barry Trotz faced this Tampa Bay team last season. The idea of him digging into my systems 2 straight years in a row, that's terrifying for me. Do you think it's a terrifying prospect for the Tampa Bay Lightning?
Yeah, if there's one hallmark or one of many in Barry Trotz's time with the Islanders, it's they learn a lot each year and they grow a lot each year. The first year, I don't think anybody expected them to be as good as they were. They made the second round, got swept by Carolina. Then last year in the bubble, maybe didn't have the greatest regular season, but they took they took their pandemic time off and clearly got healthy and got a little smarter about how they needed to progress in the playoffs, made it all the way to the conference final. And now they're back there again this year when maybe not everybody expected them to be. But I think Barry Trotz has his team operating at kind of peak efficiency right now. I think you saw it in game 1. They frustrated a Lightning team that didn't look as focused as they needed to be. And I think it kind of put to bed any lingering feelings about the conference final last year, where the Islanders made it to the conference final in Toronto, had to fly all the next day to Edmonton, get right on the ice the following day, lost 8-2 to the Lightning. I think people thought, well, they're a bit of a fluke. They don't deserve to be here. And then the rest of that series was pretty much a coin flip, a couple overtime games, a close loss in game 2. And I think Barry Trotz has understood that on equal footing, starting this conference final series, they're as good as anybody, especially if they play the way that they did. And they certainly looked like a team that was ready for the moment.
Yeah, that was a tired New York Islanders team that went into the conference final last year. Different story this time around. You were talking about growth, Arthur. Matt Barzal, what kind of growth have you seen from him compared to last season's playoffs?
I think he had certainly a really spectacular regular season. I think there's, you can go online and click Mathew Barzal 2021 goals and you'll get half a dozen that'll make your eyes pop. He had a really outstanding regular season. And I think he certainly understands too, after the grind of last year's playoff run, that this is where you really get your fame and your fortune. He's got the fortune now, a 3-year deal worth $7 million per last offseason. And now I think he wants to be considered one of the best players of his draft class. And it's hard to do. Connor McDavid, yeah. Jack Eichel, these are the big names, but he's the guy that's left standing from that group. And I think he wants to show that if he can help lead this team to a Stanley Cup, that's the ultimate goal of anybody that gets drafted, even in as great a draft class 2015. And I think you saw it towards the middle of that Bruins series. He hadn't had a goal in it in the first 8 games of the playoffs. The Penguins and the Bruins kind of were really tough on him physically, but he had a couple of grinding, non-Barzal-like goals to get him going against Boston. And I think it's really kind of broken him out a little bit and made him realize that to lead a team like the Islanders, you have to play that Islanders style. You have to be a little bit grittier. You have to be able to kind of dig around the net. He still got the pretty moves, and his breakaway goal in game 1 was certainly nice and using all of his skills. But I think he's embracing the moment with this team at this time, and it's really paying off.
You talked about grit and grind. Can the Isles expect to continue to make this a grinding, low-scoring affair against this lights-out, high-offense Tampa Bay team?
I think they can. They didn't look this good for this long in a game, I think, really until the tail end of either of those first 2 series. I think the familiarity they had with the Penguins and Bruins playing them so much this year, there really were no secrets and no surprises at all. And I think it was a bit of a slugfest through the first 5 games before the Islanders were able to kind of put both those teams to bed. They haven't really been in this position to kind of impose their will from early on in a series. And I don't know whether it's the Lightning just being unfamiliar with that style of play, having played in their division against a team like, and then in the playoffs against a team like the Panthers, it's high octane. Carolina, similar style of play, and Tampa can certainly play at that level. The Islanders want to slow it down. They want to frustrate you. And if you get in that headspace against the Islanders, it's going to be a long, long night where you have to keep going back to get pucks below your goal line and go 200 feet through a mess of sticks and bodies, and then get to a goalie in Semyon Varlamov, who's playing maybe his best games of the year so far. So the fact that they're in this situation right now, having won game 1 in a 1-goal game, that was a pretty commanding style for the Islanders, I think has to have them feeling good. And maybe has the Lightning feeling, do we have that reservoir of mental fortitude that helped get them through to Stanley Cup last year? do they have it to dig into this late in the playoffs? I don't know if they can get there. And if the Islanders come out and do it again in game 2, you have to wonder if the Lightning can get there at all.
Well, you said it. The Islanders imposed their will in game 1. We will see if they can do it again in game 2, which goes on Tuesday.